speech today, perhaps the most important speech of her political career, in trouble, under attack from everybody, and of course, after that visit to Kenya, criticised for her abject dancing. So she comes on the stage to ABBA's Dancing Queen, dances onto the stage. It was the least Theresa May like, the least prime ministerial thing I've ever seen in my life. I didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. I mean, it was, in a way, it was pretty cringeworthy, really. But it was also quite clever. Because, you see, Boris Johnson is the big showman, isn't he? He's the guy that makes the headlines. He's the guy that gets the funny photographs. And suddenly what she did by dancing onto the stage to ABBA's Dancing Queen was she guaranteed that she's got the picture on the front pages, and for the first time in her entire political career, possibly even life, there's a photograph of her looking like she's having fun. So I'm not saying she did it well, but I do think in terms of managing Theresa May, her image, that rivalry with Boris, actually, it was quite a clever thing to do. Now, this conference has been absolutely dominated by the fringe. That's where the noise has been. That's where the fury and the passion has been. Often, as we've reported during the week, senior cabinet ministers have spoken to the hall with fewer than 5% of the seats filled. Well, they were certainly queuing today to get in. It was absolutely packed to the rafters. And of course, the single most important thing she had to do was to reiterate her position on Brexit without using that offensive, rude C word, checkers. She avoided using the word checkers at any point today. Again, I think quite clever PR management. If she'd said checkers, there would have been a groan, I think, in the hall, or somebody would have shouted out, or whatever it was. So here she was setting out her proposals.
Our proposal is for a free trade deal that provides for frictionless trade in goods. It would protect hundreds of thousands of jobs in the just-in-time supply chains our manufacturing firms rely on. Businesses wouldn't face costly checks when they export to the EU, so they can invest with confidence. And it would protect our precious union, the seamless border in Northern Ireland, a bedrock of peace and stability, would see no change whatsoever. No simple free trade agreement could achieve that, not even one that makes use of the very latest technology. Our proposal would be good for our rural communities, getting us out of the common agricultural policy. It will be good for our coastal communities. We will be out of the common fisheries policy, an independent coastal state once again.
So what she makes clear is that a Canada Plus type deal is not an option. She is continuing with the Chequers plan without actually saying so. She continued.
Our proposal would mean we could renew our role in the world, strike new trade deals with other countries. With control of our money, we can spend more on our NHS. With control of our laws, we can bring decision-making closer to the people and return powers to Westminster, Edinburgh, Cardiff and Belfast. And with control of our borders, we can do something that no British government has been able to do in decades. Restore full and complete control of who comes into this country to the democratically elected representatives of the British people.
Well, it's a good line for conference. So she's going to control immigration, taking back control of our borders. And mind you, she said it when she was Home Secretary about non-EU migration and completely and utterly failed. And I wonder, given that she's been a Remainer and given that again and again and again she could not say that she'd vote to leave in a second referendum, she could not say she believed in Brexit until a few days ago, do you really believe her when she says this about Britain's future post-Brexit?
You are the people we are all here to serve. And together, we will build a brighter future for the whole United Kingdom. I passionately believe that our best days lie ahead of us and that our future is full of promise.
The best is yet to come. There could always have been a bit of Frank Sinatra there, but there wasn't. ABBA, I guess, was enough for one speech. So how do we analyse this? Well, unlike last year's catastrophe, where if you remember, a comedian came out of the crowd with a P45. It completely discombobulated her, so much so she started coughing, drinking water, having terrible trouble. And then, of course, the letters fell off behind her from the wall. It was a disaster. What you saw today was much more normal Theresa May. Over the years, the one thing she's been really good at, she's good at getting up on the stage at a party conference and reading out a speech. She does it well. She does it in a way that impresses not just party members in the room, but the commentariat, the Tory supporting newspapers. Again and again, we've seen her as Home Secretary and as Prime Minister be lauded for a speech and then completely fail to deliver. We will, over the course of the next hour, examine the content of this speech, who she was aiming it at, whether it actually makes the Conservative Party more electable. But on the basic question of has she now secured her position as party leader, I have to tell you, I unequivocally think the answer to that is yes. Because, tomorrow morning, you'll see the front pages, and it's all going to be the best days are ahead of us. May triumph at Tory conference. That's what you're going to read tomorrow. I think she's probably got 2 weeks of grace until we get to the October summit in Brussels, and more of that later on. But I think she's absolutely secure now in her position as party leader. My view on it is the timetable's running out anyway, and the chance for the Eurosceptics to remove her came after Chequers. The country was angry. The Brexit secretary had resigned. The foreign secretary had resigned. Boris's big moment was then. And I felt yesterday, whilst it was another great Boris performance, he finishes up saying, back the Prime Minister. It isn't somehow believable. I think she's there to stay. I think she's secure. If you agree with me, call 0345 6060 973. If you disagree with me and think, actually, the gloss will wear off within 48 hours, because it nearly always does, and Farage's 2 weeks is way too optimistic, then text to 84850. And please, tell me what you thought of the content of that speech today. Yes, of course, she said things about, diagnoses for bowel cancer being reduced by 10 years, all of that perfectly sensible stuff. But did you hear stuff about your life, your job, your future finances? Did you hear stuff today that made you think, wow, under her, life could be a whole lot better? Let me know either way, please, by tweeting, using the hashtag Farage and LBC, at LBC, and of course, Facebookers, you can watch us and comment there too. Robert in Dulwich is my first caller of the evening. Good evening, Robert.
Good evening, Nigel. I find it so depressing. I think you're right. She is going to survive now.
Yes.
They've missed their chance. We seem to have political amnesia, and the press especially. Every time she gives one of these speeches, she then, a few days later, starts making concessions again, right?
Oh,
when she's in front of her own base.
Robert, when she gives these speeches, they write about her as if she's the modern-day Mrs. Thatcher.
It's unbelievable. They literally, and you know what's going to happen? It won't be 2 weeks, Nigel. Within the next few days, we're going to hear of further concessions, I'm sure of it, or in some attempt to try and cobble something together. I actually think that there's a charade going on now, and that the bulk of the deal has been agreed with Merkel. And then what they're doing is they're to and fro this and pretending that they're
Why
trying to get
are you so
together.
cynical, Robert? Why are you so cynical about our elected leader who stood up today and told you that she's delivering Brexit?
Well, because she is at best a middle manager. I mean, look at the record in Home Office and all the rest.
I know she's hopeless. She doesn't deliver.
The general election of 2015 has got to go down. Was it 2015? Or, sorry,
17, yeah.
Where she literally just cocked the machine gun and then turned it onto her own base and lost. Who has ever lost 16% in a week in the polls?
Well, I think it was
a 20% lead. I've never seen it.
Yeah, no, it was remarkable.
Right?
It was an amazing performance, yes, in that sense. So Robert, you are basically distrustful on Brexit. You think there's more bad news to come?
Oh, in the next few days. But, Nigel, this is what I don't get. She's in her own base. She got booed 2 days ago in one of the constituents. Right, she's actually booed.
Yeah.
Right, you've got
whether she was booed or whether it was grumbling, but yeah, certainly discontent from the grassroots. But today, Robert, she pulled it off. They all thought she's wonderful. The commentariat thinks she's great. She'll be lauded tomorrow. Robert, I'm going to tell you in the course of the next hour exactly what I think will happen over the course of the next 2 weeks in the run-up to that summit. Thank you. Let's go to Sean, a new caller from Horsham in Sussex. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Nigel.
Welcome.
Yeah, I think you're right. The superficial nature of press reporting will keep her in place.
Yes.
They'll call out the big ideas, or the so-called big ideas, and the headline cancer thing, but she's spoken about injustices in society before. She's also spoken on most speeches about ending austerity, whereas Philip Hammond this conference has also said that austerity would continue. There's a lot of inconsistency in the whole conference.
Did she, Sean? Did she sound like a Conservative to you? So I say that because I was struck that most of the first half of the speech, I mean, she sounded like a Blairite, or it sounded like a sort of post-Brexit relaunch of the SDP. I mean, I felt she was talking to the London Metropolitan Society. I didn't think she was speaking to Middle England at all.
Yeah, I'm in the south of England, and what I've been won over by some of the messages from Corbyn's Labour. NHS waiting times, 4 hours, falling from 97% to 82%. This cancer treatment thing is just like a tiny bandage on a gaping wound. It's just a soundbite.
Yeah.
We've got police cuts, youth services cuts, and all of these things interreact to create problems. You've got teachers marching on Downing Street 3 years in a row with cuts. If anyone saw the Panorama programme with Bronagh Munro a couple of weeks ago, it was incredible, the abuses of academy schools. There are big problems that she isn't addressing, and it's not just her. It doesn't really matter who replaces her.
But she is secure, Sean, isn't she?
She is, because of the superficial nature of press analysis.
No. Absolutely, I get it, Shauna, thank you. Catty on Facebook says her speech will not get the headlines, but her dance will. That's the point, Catty. If her dance gets the headlines, actually, it paints her in a much more positive light. I cringed watching it, but it was, from a PR perspective, really pretty clever stuff. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:15, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz. Theresa May, always keen to talk about minorities, to say we're not the nasty party. This is what she had to say about advancement within the modern Conservative Party.
The opportunity to take your future in your hands, to dream and strive and achieve a better life. To know that if your dad arrived on a plane from Pakistan, you can become Home Secretary. But if you spent time in care, you can be in the cabinet. That if your grandparents came to our shores as part of the Windrush generation, you could be the next mayor of London. But if you are pregnant with your first child and engaged to your girlfriend, you could be the next First Minister of Scotland.
Well, it's a big focus there, isn't it? It's big focus on minorities of all kinds, saying, hey, in modern Britain, and particularly in the Conservative Party, these are no barriers, you can do well. This, I think, is sort of a big outreach to ethnic minority voters. It's as if just saying a couple of things like this and suddenly all the ethnic minorities are going to start voting Conservative. I'm not sure that works. And I wonder whether she kind of overemphasises this. And all right, there are places like London that do have a very big, broad cross-section of people. But you start to go outside the M25, and a lot of people will be saying, well, that's all well and good, but what about us, Mrs May? What about the countless millions who are struggling to pay the mortgage, whose living standards are not improving? And that, I think, is where the speech, frankly, didn't reach out at all. I don't think it scratched Middle England. I don't believe it did anything for 5.2 million businesses. I've got a tweet here that disagrees with me. It says, the PM spoke to me today. She spoke in appreciative terms about small business owners and the jobs we provide. The words are good, but it's actions that matter. Well, yeah, it is, Ishil. And actually, I will explain during this hour why she's bound herself to this European deal in such a way that she will not be able to help small business. I was told by John Howard, Australian John Howard, who won 4 general elections as leader of their Conservative movement. He said to me once, he said, no Conservative leader can win in the Western world without getting blue-collar support. And you think about it, Thatcher, Reagan, John Major did brilliantly getting blue-collar votes back in the 90s, and I guess Trump, in many ways, did the same for the Republicans. I'm not sure there's anything in that speech that reaches out to blue-collar workers in this country. I don't think there is. I think she's aimed this at a London-based audience who predominantly don't vote Conservative anyway. That's my feeling. But I stick to my point. She's done enough, without doubt, to stay secure as leader of the party. That may be a good thing or a bad thing. Colin is calling from Finchley. Good evening, Colin.
Hi, Nigel. Thanks for talking to me. Nigel, I've got to ask you something. I phoned up to have a pop at you. I've got to ask you.
Yeah.
What makes you think by getting rid of Mrs. May is going to make this country any better? Who's going to do any better when there ain't even a deal on the table? All there is talk. And that's all. Cameron went to the country without any plans of if it did go wrong, and then done a runner, right? And I just want to know what makes you think. And I normally don't get involved with politics or religion because I don't understand both. But what's she gonna? Who's gonna take? What's Mr. Boris gonna do?
Colin,
honestly, if he became leader.
Colin, the answer to that is. I've been saying for a very long time now, to have a leader carrying out Brexit that doesn't actually believe in it is a very big mistake. But in terms of getting rid of her, frankly, Colin, they could have got rid of her back in July, after the Chequers deal. They could have completely repositioned our negotiation with Brussels because of a timetable and, the months are running out. Now, Colin, I think she's secure in her position. I don't think there's anything they can do. Time is running out. But my criticism, Colin, of her would be that she's never actually believed in it. And, she talked today in her speech. She said, oh, well, of course, for the purpose of our negotiations, they have to understand that we would walk away if we had to. But from the start, Colin, Brussels have known she wasn't going to walk away. So she's been too weak in this. She's let them lead her. But you know what, Colin? I think she's there and she's not going anywhere.
Well, if I can just say this before I go, look, the only two guarantees in life, three guarantees, is a birth certificate, taxes, and a death certificate.
Sounds about right.
Now, I'm going to say this, and you mark my words, that within a few weeks, the people in Europe, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Miele washing machines, all the big people who have got millions and millions of pounds invested in this country will go to the EE and say, you're going to do a deal with England. Because we're not going to prepare to lose all this money because you don't want to talk to us.
Colin, I agree with you completely. There are somewhere between 12 and 15,000 lorries come through the Channel Tunnel to Folkestone every single day, full of European goods to be sold here, and they want the same thing too. Colin, I believe a genuine good deal is there, potentially on the table for us. My concern, Colin, is she will give too much away to get it. But hey, Colin, I take your point. I thank you. Adam is calling from Chelsea. Good evening, Adam.
Oh, thank you, Nigel. Today I accidentally stumbled across a cure for insomnia. I tried to watch Theresa May's speech and I lasted about 5 minutes before I was completely cold.
Adam, you must have been impressed by her dancing onto ABBA. I mean, come on.
Well, it reminded me of the Night of the Living Dead. That zombie dance. I don't know where inspiration came.
So, I mean,
I disagree with you, Nigel. I think she knows everybody. I think her party knows her goose is cooked. There's no way that the calls for business. They're panicking. They like to plan ahead. And I've been through Dover this summer, and they're totally unprepared. And it's not going to take much to see queues stretching for miles and miles.
Adam, she's going to do a deal, but not the kind of deal we could get. She's going to surrender.
Exactly. She's had 2 years, and we've just realised, Joe Public just realised they spent 2 years arguing amongst themselves, and the fight, the rats in the sack is going to get more and more vicious. They won't be able to contain themselves, and they're going to have to show the door. As you said, there's not much of a,
They should have done. But the trouble is, Adam, here's the problem. If they were to show her the door now, there'd have to be a leadership contest. That would take a month, let's say, and we're running out of time to negotiate the Brexit deal. They should have done this back in July.
Yes. So then, as you said, then we'll prepare for a really bad deal.
Yep, absolutely, and I'll tell you more about that in the course of the next 20 minutes. So thank you. It was a disappointing speech, full of distraction, delusion. It also bounced haphazardly around a variety of unconnected, often irrelevant topics. Well, that's one view. I think most commentators would say it was a very well-written speech, which she delivered reasonably well. Others would say it was very wooden, and many would say she's always. Dominic says, what a mess you created, Farage. She's doing her best to sort it out. Oh, no, she isn't, Dominic. I know it's not Panto season, but that is my response to you. Robert is a new caller from Hebden Bridge in Yorkshire, and he's welcome to the show. Good evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Nigel. I have to say, I listened to the speech while I was driving, and I almost had to pull over. I felt so angry listening to it. To me, it came across as a really sanctimonious sermon rather than a speech, in which I felt she was talking down to me and patronising me.
Interesting.
And there was so much hypocrisy within it. I mean, she started off talking about how divisive and how ugly politics has come in this country, and she referred to Diane Abbott, and I thought, oh, right, okay, we're going here somewhere here, trying to sort of reach out to everybody. And then she launches off into what's happened at every major speech of the Tory conference, with smears, character assassination of Corbyn in particular and the Labour Party in general. I mean, does she not see the connection between all those sort of smears?
Well, maybe she does. But, Robert, you say that, you felt she was preaching. It was like a sermon. Yeah. I mean, Tony Blair was often characterised as being rather like a vicar. I mean, tell me a leader that you felt has spoken to you directly.
Oh, well, you won't like this. I was really impressed with Jeremy Corbyn last week.
Okay.
I thought his speech was full of policies. Mm-hmm. You may not like them, but there were policies. He gave a vision for the future, which was uplifting, and which gave hope to a lot of people who haven't seen any opportunities for hope at the moment. And he came forward with policies that no matter what, the Tories try to say, they say that it's, a return to Soviet-style economics. It's not. It's more like what you have in Sweden or you have in...
Well, some would argue. But Robert, let's just listen to a piece of Theresa May here.
You are the people we are all here to serve. And together, we will build a brighter future for the whole United Kingdom.
Robert, come on, she's going to build a brighter future for you. What's not to like?
You know what I thought when I heard that word together used again? I remember Osborne saying at the beginning of austerity politics, we're all in it together.
Yes.
We saw how that worked out, didn't we?
We
the rich got richer and the poor got very much poorer.
Oh, absolutely. 10 years of quantitative easing, asset price inflation, that's exactly what happened. Robert, thank you for the call, and Robert feeling it was preachy and he was being talked down to. Tell you what, folks, she's absolutely secure as Tory leader. I believe that, although I do think on the night of the 18th, 19th of October at this big European summit, I think some people who today are saying nice things about her are in for a bit of a shock. I'm going to explain that, but for now, you're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:30 and time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
Globals make some noise for those who don't get heard. This is LBC.
2 days to go for the charity auction that I've been pushing for the course of the last week. It is for LBC's charity, Globals Make Some Noise, a charity that supports small, brilliant projects across the UK helping children and families living with illness, disability or a lack of opportunity. And you can go to lbc.co.uk to bid. 3 of you to have lunch with me at Franco's restaurant here in central London. It is, I can tell you, totally excellent. And we'll do the lunch on a Friday afternoon when I'm not broadcasting at 6 in the evening. And we'll have some fun doing it. I'll tell you a bit more about Juncker, what Trump's like up close and personal. And it'll be a good fun thing to do for a very good cause. The highest bid in so far is just over £8,000. It closes at 6:45pm tomorrow evening, when we'll announce who the winner is going to be. You've got to be 18 to take part, and all the terms and conditions can be found lbc.co.uk till 6:45 tomorrow if you want to come and have lunch with me for LBC's charity, Globals Make Some Noise.
Global's Make Some Noise. For those who don't get heard on LBC.
So, Mrs May's speech today, everybody's happy, it's all going to be fine and dandy. Trouble is, folks, it isn't. It really, really isn't. Because we can see today absolutely clearly where Brexit is going. And I have to say, I did pick up some pretty strong hints yesterday, being in the European Parliament chamber. They have used the Northern Ireland issue, and they've done it in such a way as to box Theresa May into a position where she doesn't feel confident of genuinely breaking free of the European Union. There was a phrase that was used in her speech today that I don't think commentators have really properly noticed. Let's listen to her talking about the kind of deal she's going to get for the UK.
Our proposal is for a free trade deal that provides for frictionless trade.
Frictionless trade.
If you work in a factory in Pendle, you need a Brexit that keeps trade friction-free and supply chains
frictionless
flowing.
trade.
If you live in Pettigo on the Irish border, you need a Brexit that keeps it frictionless.
Frictionless
and
trade. Boom,
connected.
boom, boom. The 1, 2, 3. Frictionless trade. What does that mean? That means, basically, folks, the deal's been done. We are this isn't just going to be checkers, which she couldn't even mention today because she knew she might get a few little bits of abuse from the floor. This, by the time she comes back on the afternoon of the 19th of October in a couple of weeks' time, this will be much worse than any of the Eurosceptics feared Chequers was going to be. We will be signed up to full regulatory alignment with the European Union. We will have the European Court of Justice overseeing it. And when she talks about, immigration policy changing, no. There'll be special rules for people coming from the European Union as well. They are my predictions. I think it's plain for all to see. There is going to be a deal. It's going to be a rotten deal. And actually, I agree with Colin, who called up earlier. Sceptical though he might have been about me, but he made the point. There's so much European business that wants a free trade deal with this country. We could do one. Mrs May doesn't want a free trade deal. She is effectively going to keep us tied to the European rulebook and pretty much inside the customs union. That is where we're going. And a lot of you columnists who've written your lovely pieces of prose for tomorrow morning's papers, in a fortnight's time, you'll be horrified. But it'll all be too late to get rid of her. She's there, she's secure, and Brexit is in, at the moment, some trouble. Those who want Brexit had better start lobbying their MPs. Bill is calling from Faversham. Bill, do you agree with me that she looks pretty secure now?
Oh, absolutely. I was trying to reframe it in a non-political way. And I thought if I had a company, I wanted someone to look after a few years and, look after me, my family, security and all the rest of it. Would I want Boris with his very high intelligence and flashes of genius, but incredibly stupid things he does? Or would I want Jeremy with his principles and his, belief in himself? Or would I want a really safe pair of hands? And I think she's a really safe pair of hands. She's the head girl.
Well, she may well, Bill, she may well be, a middle manager. But is she, and this is the real question, is she the right Prime Minister to see through the biggest change in politics for many generations?
I think she obviously doesn't believe in Brexit, but at the same time, I think she's the kind of person, like I said, she's head girl material. She will do the job even if she doesn't like the job to the bitter end. Whereas I think anybody was in this role, the EU and sort of globalist masters will be sabotaging them all along the way anyway. So you need somebody who's going to say, right, this is your job, you want to get on with it. And it's not going to be perfect, but I think there will be something, because I think she's going to see the job through. I'm not sure what type of personality could handle this because of the sabotage.
Well, somebody, Bill, that believes in it and someone that's tough. How about those as qualities?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Who is that person?
Until you have a contest, you never know. If we'd had this conversation, Bill, in 1973-74 about who would succeed Edward Heath, none of us would have picked Margaret Thatcher. She was about 500 to 1 against. So you never quite know in a contest who would have picked John Major to come through the middle. Absolutely nobody. You never quite know in these things who wins. The golden rule generally with Conservative Party leadership elections is that the favourite never wins. So Boris effectively would turn into the stalking horse if the history books, a la Michael, sort of Heseltine repeated themselves. Bill, you're saying she's the best of a bad job as head girl to see us through. I'm suggesting we need something a little bit better than that. But Bill, I understand where you're coming from, and I thank you. Paul in Croydon does not feel quite the same. He says, from the Lancaster House speech where she promised a Brexit that actually was Brexit, to the Chequers agreement, where Brexit now means remain, I cannot trust or ever vote for Theresa May or the Tories ever again. Paul in Croydon, you are not alone in saying that. Alex in Norfolk says, I would agree with you that she will only last 2 weeks, but who on earth will replace her with our tight schedule? Alex, I wasn't saying she'll only last 2 weeks. I was saying the honeymoon will last for 2 weeks. You know, Boris will be very, very quiet for the next 2 weeks. Believe you me. It'll only be after she comes back from the Brussels summit that people will start to criticise. So please don't misread me. I'm saying she's there and she's secure as leader. She's going to be leader for some time to come. The Eurosceptics could have dealt with it. They chose not to. Charlie is calling from Ebbw Vale. Good evening, Charlie.
Hi, Nigel. How you doing?
Doing well. What did you make of her speech?
Oh, it's an absolute disaster, isn't it? Just from start to finish. It's just a total disaster.
Oh, you must have thought her dancing was better than it was in Kenya.
Well, I mean, that's the point, isn't it? It's all sort of, the dancing's just a publicity stunt. But
of course it is.
It fell flat on its face when she was doing it over in Africa as well, because it wasn't just Kenya. There was a few different videos from different places where she was doing it.
I couldn't bear to watch past Kenya, but anyway, Charlie, I believe you, you know. Right, so tell me why it's a disaster.
Well, I mean, I can just see it going one way with her in charge, and it's Chequers. But I think Boris or Rees-Mogg have got something up their hat where they're going to pull it out at the last minute, and they're just going to say, well, Chequers isn't good enough, so we're going to do a leadership election and we'll push for a no deal because there's no time to negotiate anything anyway.
Well, Charlie, 25 years ago, right, when I was first really getting interested in politics and wondering what the hell I could do, we faced a situation where John Major came back from Maastricht with a treaty that Bill Cash and the leading Eurosceptics thought was a total disaster for democratic self-government in this country. All right?
Yeah.
Major then puts it to the Parliament, and everyone's told that this is vital, that in the interests of party unity in the country, you must all get behind the Prime Minister, because if you don't, there'll be a general election and the Labour Party will get in. And do you know what the Tory Eurosceptics did, Charlie?
Go on, tell me.
Shamefacedly marched through the lobbies, or shuffled through the lobbies, and voted for John Major, despite having waged war on that treaty for the previous 18 months. And I think we may well be facing that kind of moment at some point between now and Christmas, where there is a major parliamentary vote. And Jacob and Boris and the rest are told, you must do this for party unity. You mustn't risk Corbyn getting in. And they're going to have a big, big decision to make.
All I can say is I hope you're wrong. Honestly, I really do.
Do you know what, Charlie? Do you know what? I really hope I'm wrong too. But that's how I think it's going. Thank you very much indeed for your call. Well, I tell you, there's there'll be a lot of speculation about this, but I've said what I've said tonight because I really believe it to be true. This deal is done. Claire on Facebook says, the deal has been done. It's a waste of time. Claire, I think the deal has been done. I genuinely, really, honestly, truthfully do. A little bit of play acting in the next couple of weeks, and then we fly the white flag of surrender, and effectively we finish up with a Brexit that is Brexit in name only. It's a very bad thing for British democracy, whether you believed in the Brexit vote or whether you didn't. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show on LBC. It's now 6:45, and it's time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz. Theresa May's big day. Nothing actually went terribly wrong, even if you did think that her dancing onto the stage to ABBA's music was a little bit cringeworthy. But she got through the speech. She read it out perfectly well. No stumbles, no slips. Lots of hints as to where we're going with Brexit, frictionless trade, Irish border. It means we're effectively going to be staying in much of the European Union whilst leaving the treaty. But I think she has secured herself as leader. I think the speculation over her leadership frankly ends, because even in a couple of weeks after a very bad European summit for the Eurosceptics, the idea of getting rid of her now with the timetable running out just seems to me that it doesn't actually work. So I didn't support what she said today at all, but I do think she is secure as leader. That's my view. What does James in Finchley think? Good evening, James.
Good evening, good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm well, but I'm quite fearful as to what's going to happen in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, her speech was, of course, full of platitudes, and the few promises she made, her promises are like pie crusts, easily broken.
Right.
And instead of hectoring and giving lectures to us about how rude the foreigners are, why doesn't she go over there and wipe the floor with them?
Well,
but she's frightened of them. What we need...
Do you know, James, on that point, she said in her speech today, when I went to Salzburg, you saw me standing up for Britain. Oh, no, I didn't. I saw her being totally humiliated.
Exactly. Well, in order to deal with the Yonkers and the Heinkels, we need a Spitfire. What we've got is an old string bag.
String bag, for those that don't know.
She even dresses like Merkel to show she's a great European.
James, tell them what a string bag is, because most people won't know.
Oh, it's an old First World War plane that was used to fight the Germans.
Yeah, it used to fly at sort of maximum speed of about 85 miles an hour, I think. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
That's right. There's a little bit of military history, always good, I think. So James, what do you conclude? Am I right? Is she, despite everything, secure in her role?
Well, you never know your luck in the big city, and it's always possible. I suppose the odds are 1,000 to 1 that while she's away, one or two Conservative MPs may have the gall to try and stab her in the back. I hope so, because she is the best asset that the Labour Party have.
Yep.
And the reason why I despise her is because
That's a
she
strong
gave
word.
heart to Corbyn.
Despise is a very strong word, James.
I do, because she's also a Jonah. As a Home Secretary, I've spoken to a number of people, very pro-Conservative, as I am, but she's not a Conservative. She has no Conservative...
Well, she was a Blairite. She was a Blairite today for much of her speech.
I mean, she was probably one of the worst Home Secretaries in living memory.
Yep, OK, James, I think we know exactly where James in Finchley stands on this. Peter in Leamington is my next caller. Good evening, Peter.
Hello, Nigel. Good evening.
So,
yeah, well, I've been sitting here thinking of a comparison of Alec Guinness in the Bridge on the River Kwai, where he's been told to build this bridge so the Japanese can get across this huge ravine.
Yes.
And he's reluctant to do it in the first instance because he doesn't want to help the Japanese. And then by the end of it, he's so proud of it, when the British then come to blow it up, he tries to stop them. So I'm wondering if she because she's a Remainer at heart, but I think the more she's got into it, the more she's becoming, you're not going to stop me doing this. I've got to do this because...
Yeah, I like the analogy. I like it.
Told to do it.
I like it. Doing all the wrong things for what you believe are the right reasons. No, yeah. I like it. I think it's a very, very good comparison. Great.
And I think she's that determined that she might just pull something out of the bag at the end. Well, everything crossed.
Well, Peter, there is going to be a deal, but who's going to blow up the bridge? And that's the point. Who's going to blow up the bridge? Bloody, by the way, what a great film it is, isn't it? Fantastic film. Made way back, David Lean, 1956-7, early colour film. Anyone's not seen it, folks, Bridge on the River Kwai, it is terrific stuff. But who's going to blow the bridge up? Boris had his chance. Boris could have blown the bridge up in July in his resignation speech, and he blew it.
Yeah.
Blew his chance. It's not going to happen, Peter. She's there. She's secure as leader.
Yes, yeah, well, yes, she is. She is. As you say, Boris blew it when the leadership challenge came up. He should have gone then. But
Anyway, I love the analogy. Brilliant. Call again. Thanks, Peter. Caroline's a new caller from Perth. Caroline, good evening.
Hi. Well, what can I say? I'm very frustrated. You could call me a cynic, but I think the whole thing has been absolutely stage managed. When you watched Boris, he doesn't want the leadership, and he doesn't want to be leader of the Conservative Party.
Doesn't he?
And I think he's all part. No, I don't believe
Well, then
it.
what's he play acting at, Caroline?
Well, I just think it just seems to me, it has a feel of a complete setup by the establishment from top to bottom. I think you look at the Eurosceptics, the ERG group.
Yes.
And they just they look like rabbits caught in the headlights, you know. And it all just seems like a charade.
It's
done and dusted.
I know what you mean. They're afraid to strike, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. So why is that? And that I'm so unconvinced by when you watch their body language. I just think this is all This just is not. There's something not right about the situation, and I think so. I'm a Brexiteer, obviously. I want to know what the people do. What can we do now to wrestle back, to harness, to regain the upper hand? I don't know. It's frustrating.
Well, Karen,
frustrated.
I would say to people, don't just lobby your MP, turn up outside their constituency office at their next surgery and queue round the street to say to them, do not betray, in this constituency, do not betray our vote, or we'll never vote for you again. That in the short term, I think, is the most effective thing you can do as a voter, Caroline.
And I think what it's difficult for, obviously I'm from London, but I'm living in Perth now, but I think what they've done is they've really underestimated the mood outside of the M25, and I think they'll get a massive kick in for this, and quite right too, because
actually, Caroline, it wasn't just on Brexit. It wasn't just on Brexit. I mean, virtually the whole of her speech was aimed in many ways at the London metropolitan elite.
Yes,
it was not reaching out to Middle England, Middle Scotland, Middle Wales, or Middle wherever it may be. Caroline, thank you very much indeed for your call. My last caller on this subject tonight is James from Pinner. James, she's there as leader now for some time, isn't she?
Well, we don't know. I don't think she's 99% there, Nigel. I think there's still another hurdle that she's got to get over. But can I just I want to make a couple of points really quickly because I know we're running out of time.
Sure.
I'm basically one of these guys that follow the Bruges group on Facebook.
Yep.
And what is going around there at the moment, I find absolutely disgusting because what they're doing, they're putting up a comparison is, would you rather have Brexit or would you rather have Corbyn?
Of course.
And I want to send the message out now. Brexit is what we want because we can get rid of Corbyn. Even if we have Corbyn for 5 years, I will be voting for Corbyn if they don't deliver Brexit. And I'm telling you that as a member of the Bruges group.
Yeah,
okay?
no, James, this is Maastricht repeating itself 25 years on.
Yeah, that's not my point. I am really incandescent about that speech. She has moved front and centre this whole thing about frictionless trade and the Irish border. It is inherent in leaving the EU that we will not have frictionless borders, including the Irish border. And it is, and the Conservatives are sitting there like, you talk about, rabbits caught in the headlights. They were absolutely mud. She put that in the middle of the speech, and if I was sitting in that room, I would have been shouting and booing at that point.
Well, nobody else did. Nobody else did, James, because they always put party unity first. Lawrence from Colchester, my last caller. You've got 30 seconds, Lawrence.
Hi, sir. How you doing, mate?
Fine,
Good.
thank you. So,
Nigel, have a little bit more faith, fella. She will be gone when she comes back in 2 weeks.
You reckon?
I've had a bet on it, and she will be gone.
Lawrence, I tell you what, Lawrence, if you're right, I'll buy you dinner, all right? Honestly, it's on me.
Well, you'll have to go with the missus, because she loves you more than I do, sir.
Right, well, she can come as well. And I'll tell you what, I'll come to Colchester, because the oysters are in season. All right, listen, Lawrence, thanks very much indeed. Look, you're all wrong. She's